Echidna. Is she evil? This is a question that has been asked since she was introduced in Arc 4. In this video, I will be presenting information from both sides to help come to a conclusion. Information used will have come from either the light novel or the anime, with some of my own inferences sprinkled throughout. Now, let's begin.
お前やっぱり魔女なんだな。
ああ、そうだとも。僕はとても悪い魔法使いなんだぜ。
Well, I guess I don't have a video now, do I? Alright, let's actually go through this clip. The sentence that Echidna says is actually different between the anime and the light novel. Taking place in episode 28 of the anime, the long-awaited reunion, Subaru asks if she really is a witch, to which Echidna replies, "Yes, that's right. I'm a very, very evil magic user." Whereas in Chapter 2 of Volume 10 of the light novel, she replies, "Yes, it is so. I am a very bad magic user, you see." Now, most people would already make the assumption that she is evil or at least have bad intentions. Her title of The Witch of Greed would also make some suspicious about her intentions, but this does not outright make her evil. She puts her greed for knowledge above all else. Some of what she does can be interpreted as evil or cruel. For example, the case of Beatrice and the Forbidden Archive. Echidna was only able to try this inhuman experiment of having Beatrice wait many, many years for that person because she is a spirit, or rather an artificial spirit, that Echidna had made. It just so happened to take a few hundred years. In Chapter 6 of Volume 12 of the light novel, Subaru asks about Beatrice's connection to her and the Forbidden Archive, to where we get some insight into how Echidna thinks through her answer, "Maintain the Forbidden Archive and give it to that person. There's no limitation because there is no true answer. I used her as intended and I can watch what her choice is. How rational, isn't it? Of course, not choosing anyone and spending 400 years is also a consequence. Agonizing over abandoning the contract or not, and choosing her own death is also one of the consequences. I think it's wonderful." This all but confirms to us that Echidna is a sociopath and shows that nothing is off limits. If she can find a way to test something, she will. Unfortunately, Beatrice had to be on the receiving end of it. Moving on to Echidna's offer to Subaru about forming a contract. For her, Subaru's return by death ability is a dream come true. Because he is the only person who can use this ability, it compelled Echidna to help him to incentivize him to follow through with forming the contract when the time came, as she would then be able to share in his knowledge. While explaining the details about the terms of their contract, she basically confirms that sometimes she would withhold vital information and make him suffer and or reset so that she can take in as much information as she can. Once again showing us that she is only thinking of the long game and her ulterior motives. In Chapter 6 of Volume 12 of the light novel, we see Subaru call her out on this. "Echidna, you'll be using me?" Echidna nodded unreservedly in response. "I will. You should simply use me back. That is the purpose of our pact. If you wish to rebuke me for using it as a means of not letting go of you, I shall gladly hear it. This is the truth after all." By the way, Echidna's monologue before this takes up 4 whole pages in the light novel. No new paragraphs, no text breaks, just a wall of text for 4 straight pages. While Subaru did not take the offer, the Greed If story shows how much this would have worn down Subaru. So much so that telling Petra that the weather will be nice enough for her to go on her shopping trip was well worth a reset all on its own. Moving on to some of her good points. First being that she does help Subaru become more compatible with his sloth witch factor.
お茶を飲んだろ。あれで怠惰の魔女因子に働きかけて君の抵抗力を強くした。これでじっくり僕とも話ができる。さあ、何が聞きたい？
聞き捨てならねえぞ。俺の体に何をしたって。
誤解しないでほしいんだけど、僕は悪さをしようと思ってお茶を飲ませたわけじゃない。むしろ僕は君の存在を好ましく思っている。
Echidna's last statement here can allude to malicious intent. However, I believe she is telling the truth. After all, if the witch factor took over Subaru like it did Petalgoose or Satella with Envy, then she wouldn't have the opportunity to make the contract. Another point is how Echidna allowed Subaru to undergo the trial of the sanctuary, where he faces his past and the outcomes of his other runs. Both of these interactions make Subaru change as a person for the better. He gains a positive outlook on life from having a one-on-one talk with his parents that he had never done before. After his final witches' tea party where he talks mainly with Tifon, Minerva, and especially Satella, his entire mindset about how to use return by death and to include himself with the people he wants to save. You see, Subaru never thought that people would grieve for him after his deaths, so he thought of every run as disposable even after succeeding. But after seeing the reactions of others over his failed attempts in the second trial, he sees that people had truly cared about him. This leads us into Subaru's unstable mental state during the second trial. Carmilla used her Faceless Bride ability to drag him out forcefully. Using Faceless Bride, she can cause people to see and hear her as what they want to see and hear. This is why Subaru saw her as Rem. Using Faceless Bride on Subaru was actually Echidna's idea though. She doesn't admit it and instead shifts all the blame onto Carmilla. Now, I know that Echidna comes back in later arcs in the form of Omega, but I want to keep this strictly to Arc 4. And also because I haven't read Arc 5 and onwards yet. With all of the information I've said, the question is, what do I think? Personally, I think she's more in the middle of good and evil, but leaning more towards good. Chaotic neutral, if you will. I believe she truly wants to help, but doesn't want to directly say it or act like it. She definitely at least wants to help people better themselves in the form of the Sanctuary's 3 trials, but in the end she would probably put her desire for knowledge above everything else, and that's okay. But what are your opinions? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, ciao.